It's finally that time of year, Rams. The ASCSU spring election for your student government is here. ASCSU is responsible for funding so many important programs, such as Ramride, student organizations, Transfort, the Rec Center, Rams Against Hunger, and so much more.
Candidates for President and Vice President, Speaker of the Senate, and Senators have started campaigning on the plaza, so get out and engage with your student body government. This is the time and opportunity to make your voice heard, so get out and vote. Keep an eye out for QR codes around campus for easy and quick access to voting information. Students will be able to vote for candidates on March 30th, March 31st, and April 1st for the 2021 ASCSU elections.
Good evening, Rams. I'm Kenneth Frederick. I will be the moderator of tonight's ASCSU Vice Presidential Debate for the 2021-2022 term. I'd like to start off the debate tonight with a message that our hearts go out to all of those who have been affected by the tragedy that has taken place in Boulder, Colorado. If you would please join me in a quick moment of silence for all of those who had lost their lives. Thank you very much. We will start off with the rules for the debate tonight. Opening statements, you will have 1 minute to complete your opening statements. In that time, please introduce yourselves and anything else you would like to say in your opening statements. For questions directed specifically at candidates, you will have 1 minute to respond. For general questions asked to all candidates, you will have 45 seconds. And if you wish to rebut something, you may raise your hand. I will acknowledge when it is your turn to speak again, and you will have 30 seconds to do so. Tonight, the chat will be moderated by the elections team, and questions from the chat will be polled and asked to the candidates. Please make sure that you put your questions down below, and we will pull and read some of those. To end, I would like to preface that CTV does not endorse any specific candidate, but seeks to provide fair and equal coverage of all of the candidates. Thank you. We'll start with a general question. What does your campaign think about the hybrid online system of courses, and how will you work to improve the experience of Rams who are working through a virtual education style? We will start with Gebretsadik.
Yeah, awesome. Can you hear me? Perfect. Being a student and having mostly virtual classes, hybrid classes, I understand the complexity of having Zoom fatigue, and I want to bring to the attention that I sit on the Student Success Advisory Board, which oversees just student success in terms of education. And just sitting on that board, I understand that students are suffering with this online hybrid component, but we know that it's needed in order to stay safe. And so I will be working more closely with the connections that I already have with those who control the power in terms of education at CSU. And I want to ensure that we're catering to everybody's needs when it comes to virtual learning.
And please excuse me, I forgot to allow time for opening statements. If you would like to start, Zuklic.
Zuklic, actually.
Zuklic,
Thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, of course. Okay, well, my name's Lydia Zuklic. I'm a junior studying finance and accounting. I'm very passionate about this campaign because I truly believe that this is we have such a significant potential given this critical moment in history. Of course, that being the fact that we are just now starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel in the pandemic. And so hopefully our physical health at large will be now transitioning back to more normal times, but that does not necessarily guarantee that mental health will do the same. And because of that, we would hope to bring a lot of events to campus safely that students would actually want to attend. We hope that this would bring another sense of community and give students a sense of purpose here on campus again. I know that everyone's felt very deprived this past year of opportunities and experiences, and so I think that this would be the utmost priority of our presidency. And I think that these ideas could have a really huge impact and a necessary one as well.
And going down the line, Gebretsadik.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. My name is Mary Gebretsadik. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm a third year studying political science with a minor in ethnic studies. And Christian and I want to be your next student body president and vice president because we are dedicated to listening with heart and in order to understand all students from all backgrounds and really catering to their needs. And that we want to be equitable and running on 3 values of radical inclusion, stewardship, and transparency.
Mr. Pringle.
Hi everyone, I'm David Pringle. I'm a third year civil engineering student, born and raised in Greeley, Colorado, and John and I would love to be your next presidents because we fully believe that CSU is a wonderful campus, and we believe that being a student at CSU is not just attending classes and going to school pretty much. It's about the people you meet, the organizations you're in, and everything along those lines. And we just really want to make the students known and heard. And yeah.
Thank you very much. And ending with Schroeder.
Aloha ahi ahi CSU. My name is Weston Schroeder. My pronouns are he, him, and his, and I'm a second year student here at CSU. I'm studying legal studies, or I'm studying political science with a minor in legal studies. I'm here tonight as an outlet for possibility. Throughout my 4 semesters here, I've noticed social fluctuations ranging from complete campus involvement to a staggered community of Rams. We believe in the resilience of unity and the possibility of a forever campus, a space where 10 years from now, nothing short of empowerment and community will thrive on this campus. We recognize that people won't always get along, and in no way will Liz and I force them to. However, we also recognize the impact of hatred, both for the individual and the community. Hatred leads to suffering. However, we stand for engagement and discourse on this campus, and throughout the student body's support, we will unify our Ramley through strength and pride. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those opening statements. And to go back to the general question, what does your campaign think about the hybrid online system of courses, and how will you work to improve the experience of Rams who are working through a virtual education style? Mr. Pringle.
Our campaign is heavily focused on student collaboration, and we just want the students to run this campus pretty much. So you'll hear that all tonight. And we really believe that if we get elected, we would love to be on campus at least once a week just to hear your thoughts about these hybrid classes. We want to know what would benefit you most through maybe whether that be in person and online, whether it be just strictly online. We just want to really know what would help you the best, and from there we can go forward and help out the most people on CSU.
Thank you. Mr. Schroeder.
Could you please repeat the question?
What does your campaign think about the hybrid online system of courses, and how will you work to improve the experience of Rams who are working through a virtual education style?
Thank you. Both Liz and I recognize the importance of having online and hybrid classes due to safety and keeping each other accountable. However, along that note, we also recognize the importance of individual accountability. And through this hybrid format, we recognize that we want to be on campus. We want other students to be on campus because that's why we're here. We're not only here for an education, we're here for the college experience. We're here to meet people. We're here to engage in things we don't normally engage with, and that's what we find is super powerful. Through our campaign, we aim to bring back football safely and effectively, and we also aim to find more socially distanced and safe events such as intramurals or any other campus activities that the students would like to see. Thank you.
And Ms. Zuklic.
Yeah, so as I already mentioned, at the forefront of our campaign is to try to reinstate our strong sense of Ram pride here at CSU. And I think that everyone has been affected, obviously, by the pandemic. However, college students have been arguably disproportionately affected given the social and highly integrated nature of college life. And I think that this has caused a lot of pain for everyone. And so it's a key piece right now to try to bring people back to campus. I think that this is a critical point in time, and so as it feels very disorienting and disconnected, attending class and everything via Zoom, it is obviously necessary now, but I do hope that in the future, coming fall, that we can possibly move more to, oh, sorry.
Thank you very much. Another general question. There's been a general feeling of disunity between the executive and Senate. How would you work to improve the relationship between the two branches? Starting with Mr. Pringle.
Of course. So that's a great question. And not being a part of ASCSU ever before, I'm not really 100% sure about the problems within. But my partner, John Williamson, he's been a member of the Senate for possibly 3 years. Don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% sure. But we plan just to take both our knowledge and care for the CSU community and just try to integrate as many people into planning and whatever that may be. And we really want to be transparent and own up to when we're wrong and all that kind of stuff. And we just really want everyone to get along and use our knowledge from both sides of being a part of ASCSU and not being a part of ASU to bring everybody together.
Thank you. Ms. Zuklic?
Yeah, so Cinque and I also haven't been involved in ASCSU, so that does give us a total brand new perspective about student body government because we are just students, we're not politicians. But I think given Cinque and I's sociable and friendly nature, it would be pretty easy to try to fix a lot of those relationships and be amicable with everyone. We could maybe try to coordinate meetings and actually talk through all the problems. I don't know the specifics of it, but I think that we could do some good things.
Ms. Gebretsadik?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Christian and I have about 5 years of experience together, and me, myself, I've had experience with both being part of the legislative branch as an associate senator and a senator, and now I currently serve as the director of diversity and inclusion within the executive branch. And so being on both ends of this issue with miscommunication, I think what needs to happen is there needs to be more transparency, and I also think there needs to be a channel of communication between those two branches, because a lot of the times it's that simple conversation that's not being had, and then it kind of turns out of proportion and leads to this mistrust. And so I think transparency and that channel of communication needs to happen.
And Ms. Schroeder?
Thank you. An outlet and what I aim to do along with Liz to branch these two governmental branches is actually hosting 1-hour meetings within the office where I talk with each senator, maybe give three meetings a week, just 1 hour, where I can meet both of them on a personal and professional level. In the final 15 minutes, invite Liz or add an additional 15 minutes. It's not maybe having a conversation. It's not maybe coordinating something. It's actually engaging and talking with people and creating these solutions and learning more about each other individually. Thank you.
And our first candidate-specific question, Ms. Gebretsadik, what steps do you think you and Christian will be able to take with U+2 that previous administrations have not been able to?
Yeah, Christian and I want to be transparent in the fact that ASCSU has no legitimate power in changing the policy of U+2, which the origin of U+2 is an anti-immigrant policy. And so it's not only affecting our students here in Fort Collins, but it's affecting our marginalized communities and our young adults here in the community. And we understand that what we can do is build relationships with those who do have the power to change it. And so throughout our campaign, Christian and I have actually met with the city manager of Fort Collins, as well as the CEO and president of the Chamber of Commerce, who actually do have the power to change policies like U+2, and we want to strengthen that relationship with the city in order to push them and really ask those hard questions in order to ensure that U+2 is eradicated, because our students are suffering with this policy.
Thank you. And back to general questions. What is something that your campaign promises to do that others do not? And I'd like to start with you, Mr. Schroeder.
Thank you. What we aim to do, what we promise to do, is look at the unused or unused funds. Say the lights in the library. After Thanksgiving break, I noticed that the second and third floors were still lit up, even though they closed the library. I assume, I don't know, that that practice will be carried on after spring break. And what we aim to do is using those unused funds and reallocating them back to the students, putting it through Uber and Lyft credits and or RAM Cash, giving those fees and those fees and that money back to the students, because through those unused funds, it's a waste of money and students aren't seeing the impacts of what they choose.
Ms. Zuklic?
Yeah, so Sinka and I do promise to further CSU's strong sustainability reputation. And doing so, this would also have an effect on our future and everyone besides us too. One idea that we specifically have is to bring a carbon capturing device to campus, which is called the Bio-Urban Tree. And what that essentially does is it's a piece of technology that takes in the amount of carbon dioxide that about 368 trees do. So we think that this architecture would also coincide with the look of the campus, so it would pretty much fit in. We also want to try to reduce single-use plastics. This could be by having more water bottle filling stations available.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Pringle?
Yes, of course. Like, we always talk about how we always want student input. And our goal and our promise is that we'll be on the plaza at least once a week just to get your input in, whether that be an hour or 3 hours just on the plaza. We really do care about what the students think and what the students want. So our goal and our promise is we just want to be on that campus so we understand what CSU students go through. As someone who's never been a part of ASCSU, I wish I had the opportunity to voice some of my opinions and concerns to make the school a better place, not just for me, but for everyone attending.
Thank you. And Ms. Gebretsadik?
Yeah, Christian and I acknowledge that we don't know all the problems and we don't have all the solutions, and that is why we want to bring different voices from all over campus to the table and really validate their voices. And Christian and I, with almost 5 years of experience within ASCSU, we understand the complexities of ASCSU. Me first starting out as a senator, it took me about 2 to 3 months to really understand how the legislative branch worked. And so with Christian and I having the connections and the experience, we not only have experience within ASCSU and have the connections within CSU, but we also have connections within the city of Fort Collins. And we really want to emphasize the fact that we want more community engagement and more community building. And that's only going to be done with Christian and I, who have the scope of the experience.
Thank you very much. What will your campaign do to spread awareness about vaccination and the steps we as a community will need to take after mass vaccination has occurred? I would like to start off with Ms. Zuklic.
Yeah, so our campaign will definitely want to promote getting the vaccine. I think that it should be accessible to most people, and our administration is optimistic that the majority of CSU population will have received it come fall, but again, we'll obviously be still wearing masks. I think that spit tests will still definitely be available, so that will help keep a lot of Rams safe who haven't received the vaccine yet. But I do think it is really important that we are able to come together as a university and have in-person events. So I do hope that everyone does get the vaccine.
Thank you. Mr. Schroeder.
In regards to vaccines, we aim for everybody to understand the importance of getting the vaccine, not for themselves, but for their families, for their Rams, and for the overall community as a whole. We want everybody to have the opportunity to receive a vaccine, whether it's on campus or not. Speaking with the health office here at CSU, or under ASCSU, I've learned that they've wanted to actually change our COVID testing sites into vaccination report, or getting sites, excuse me. And along with that, on the personal accountability note that I brought up earlier, we also want everybody to be accountable in making that choice, because it does impact them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Gebretsadik.
Yeah, when it comes to vaccinations, I think what's important is to really speak with the CSU Health Network Center. Being part of the executive branch, there's actually a position for the director of health, and so we have that direct connection with the Health Network Center, who will give us the right answers and who will give us the precautions of just the complexities of health and the vaccine, and those who might not be able to take it. And I also think we need to work with the Office of Vice President and the Office of Diversity to really ensure that all of our students, undocumented students, DACA students, and students who might not be able to take it because of allergies, are also well equipped in order to ensure that we're being equitable in this process as well.
Thank you. And Mr. Pringle.
Could you restate this question, please?
Yes, absolutely. Forgive me. What will your campaign do to raise awareness around vaccinations, and what does your campaign plan to do after mass vaccination has occurred?
So our campaign plans to work very, very closely with the CSU Public Health Network and getting that information to the people who need it. Because obviously there's many different reasons why a person is not able to get a vaccine, and we want to get that herd immunity just so that we are able to actually get in-person classes, because everyone knows these hybrid and Zoom classes aren't very effective. It's much more effective to be in person and learning directly from the teacher, where you can raise your hand without concerns of just everyone looking at you. So we really do plan on working very closely with the Public Health Network and just following their guidelines and their opinions about what CSU campus should do.
Thank you very much. Just a reminder to the folks at home, we will be pulling questions from the chat on the live stream. Please feel free to drop your questions below, and we will be more than happy to ask the candidates. Another candidate-specific question. Mr. Schroeder, what is Forever Campus, and what do you plan to do to achieve it if you are elected?
As I said in my introductory statement, it's a space, it's this space, our campus, that in 10 years from now, we'll be able to look at CSU in 2031 and seeing how strong the community is, seeing how strong people work well with one another, how people communicate, and for the people who don't agree with each other, see that they respect each other on a level where they will communicate and get things done for the student body. Further, what our campaign will do to promote this is my stake of cultural representation throughout all of the student centers and cultural centers, and really learning each other's cultures, each other's backgrounds, each other's traditions, because learning each other and learning where everybody comes from, then we can all move forward together, not only in specific communities, but as a community of a whole.
Thank you very much. Another general question. With such a low voter turnout rate in the election last semester, what is your campaign doing to support voter engagement? Starting with Mr. Pringle.
We have a very present online following, and we just want to encourage everybody, and we're out on tables. We encourage everyone to come up to us and talk to us, and we're just trying to get the word out to as many people as possible through campaigning and tabling. And there's not much we can do directly to force people to vote, obviously, but we just want to be out there on the plaza every day, and we always want to be on our Instagrams and have a welcoming feeling to the people who come and ask us questions. And there's not much you can really do, like I said before, to make people vote, but we are really just trying to be opening and transparent to everyone and encourage voting, whether that be for us or any of these awesome candidates.
Thank you. Ms. Gebretsadik.
Yeah, I think when it comes to voter engagement, I think we need to look at how many students at CSU actually know what ASCSU is. And I would say that's about 40% of students, which is not a lot. And so I think what Christian and I have been doing is making sure that we are attending the Diversity and Inclusion Caucus for Q&A sessions. And within my position as a director of diversity and inclusion, I work to create a channel of communication with international students, key communities, housing and dining, in order to create panels in order for students to ask questions about what ASCSU is, why ASCSU is important, and why we need voter turnout, a great voter turnout, because of how much of an impact it can really make.
Thank you. Ms. Zuklic.
Yeah, so I think that going into this campaign that I have cast a pretty wide and diverse net of a network of students across CSU. And a lot of those friends, they're not just from Greek life, but also just other social circles who aren't very involved in campus. And most of them haven't even voted for ASCSU before. So this will be their first time. And I will ensure that we have a new outreach through social media. We've increased a lot of engagement there by DMing people and asking any thoughts and stuff. We've also been talking at chapter meetings and other club meetings and asking for everyone's thoughts too. So I think everyone should exercise this right, and everyone has a voice, and they deserve to have it heard.
Thank you very much. Mr. Schroeder.
What we aim to do to increase voter engagement, there's parallel themes between all three campaigns and what we aim to do as well. Definitely working with housing and dining services and promoting why it's important for voting in the ASCSU elections. This is one of the, this is their first vice presidential debate where it's separated from the presidency. You get to learn more about who we are as individuals, and through that, we want to promote a different website, a updated website for future elections where people can access it more easily. Further, word of mouth, talking to professors, talking to the deans of colleges, and really making sure that our campaigns are going through those outlets so students can learn more about each other, learn more about what we all have to stand for. Thank you.
And Mr. Pringle. Oh, I'm sorry. You've already answered. I have a candidate-specific question for Ms. Zuklic. Forgive me. How will your campaign navigate the balance of throwing an increased number of events with the safety of students regarding COVID?
Right. So obviously we would have to abide by CDC's guidelines as well as how the university has to do it. So all of those rules are totally beyond our saying, but we would definitely want people to be safe, obviously. I think that this has not having student interaction has been pretty detrimental to our demographics' mental health, being college students, again, given the naturally social nature of being in college. And that's just shown through the elevated rates of depression and anxiety here. So I think with this question, it's important that we acknowledge that the mental health crisis is a pandemic within itself. And in order to come out of that stronger and make sure that these mental health effects don't be long-lasting, that we intervene now.
Thank you very much. And this question is for Mr. Pringle. Rebuttal from Mr. Schroeder.
Yes. While I recognize the importance of mental health and its own pandemic of mental health, what financial resources will you need to sanction a concert in the fall? Or do you have no plan on having barriers or protections for these students, for our students?
Ms. Zuklic?
So we do have plans, and we would obviously make sure that students are social distance. Again, that is not up to our saying how that would go, how logistically that would work, but we would have to, I guess, make that in the budget, which obviously we don't have drawn up yet, but we would definitely, student safety is the utmost importance of our campaign. I mean, safety's first, so thank you.
Thank you very much. This question is for Mr. Pringle. Do you believe that your inexperience with the ASCSU will make the job of vice president harder or easier on you, and how so?
So I believe so John has many years of experience in ASCSU, and his experience will obviously benefit me in how to get things done and what routes I need to take. But my inexperience in ASCSU, I see as a strength because I don't know what limits the people. So I plan on bringing many, many different opinions and opportunities and different ideas to the Senate and legislative branches of ASCSU.
Thank you very much. This question is from the live stream chat, and it is about voter engagement. People like to avoid the plaza. How are you reaching the people who aren't talking to you when you're out tabling? Starting with Mr. Schroeder.
Thank you. Something that I do is I do wear our mask that has our campaign logo, and I go around asking people how their day is, how their coffee is, and it's something that's outside of talking about the campaign, talking about what we stand for. It's learning who these students are, and through that, they don't get, for lack of better terms, beaten down by just campaigns talking to them about, listen to what we're about. Do you have a moment of your time that we can spend? It's just learning about who these students are, what classes they're going to, and through wearing my Today Schroeder mask, they'll see this person is running for something, this person is standing for something. Let's go look them up. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gebretsadik?
Yeah, aside from campaigning on the plaza, Christian and I have taken the initiative to reach out to different dean's councils across different colleges, and also just meeting with different organizations on campus. We understand that there's over 500 different organizations at CSU, and so we've taken the time to meet with many different organizations, as well as having a virtual component that is accessible, so through social media, and just different, like our website. And so I think it's important to have that virtual component regardless of whether we're allowed to campaign on the plaza or not.
Thank you. Mr. Pringle?
Just like these other two candidates said, it's hard to be on campus, especially now with COVID, but we do have a large Instagram presence, and we have been reaching out to different organizations, fraternities, sororities, just to get our word out, just not to vote for us specifically, but to tell them what we're about and to try to increase voter engagement, just whether that be voting for us or any other candidate.
Thank you. And Ms. Zuklic?
Yeah, so like other people said, we've also been speaking at clubs around campus and other chapter meetings every Monday night. Cinca and I will meet up and talk to chapters, and we'll ask them what they want us to do and if they have any input, because that's a necessary component of this, obviously. But besides that, we have a pretty strong social media presence. A lot of our friends have taken the initiative to repost a lot of our posts on their stories or repost flyers and whatnot. We have banners hung up on some of our friends' house, like on the corner of Shields and Prospect, which is a pretty noticeable area. I think that the things that avenues that we've gone about has really increased our presence here on campus.
Thank you. I believe Ms. Gebretsadik mentioned working with the city of Fort Collins, and I have a general question for the rest of you. Is a relationship with Fort Collins City Council important? And if so, what would you have that relationship look like? Starting with Ms. Zuklic.
I think that this relationship is obviously important. CSU is the powerhouse of Fort Collins, I think, economically and socially, I think. So we do have a good amount of say. This is important for, again, trying to abolish U+2, which the current administration has largely paved the way for this. So we're really appreciative of that. And this is another reason that Cinca and I would want to try to unionize all the universities in Colorado to make all of our voices heard louder collectively and to try to make some real change in Colorado.
Thank you very much. Mr. Pringle.
That is a great question. As many people know, CSU has a large voice in Fort Collins, but they don't really have a large vote in Fort Collins. So what we want as a CSU campus does not necessarily happen in the city of Fort Collins. So if we get elected, we do plan on trying to get that voter presence in the Fort Collins government.
Thank you very much. Ms. Gebretsadik?
Yeah, I believe that CSU is the heart it's the heart of Fort Collins city. And something that I noticed with being director of diversity and inclusion with the executive branch, and also just interviewing different folks in the city of Fort Collins, I noticed a lot of them say, hey, we don't have a lot of ASCSU students that come talk to us about this. We don't have this channel of communication that's consistent. And so with Christian and I already having these connections and building these channels of communications from our positions currently, I think consistency with that, if elected, is going to be the most important aspect, because when a new administration comes in, it's having to start all over again. And so I think it's important to have that connection, because CSU is the heart of Fort Collins.
Thank you very much. Mr. Schroeder?
Could you please repeat the question?
Yes. Do you believe that a relationship with the Fort Collins City Council is important? And if so, how would you have the relationship look?
Well, first off, as the other campaigns have said, I believe a relationship with City Council and the government of Fort Collins is crucial. It's something that we have a huge voice in as being a CSU campus of 30,000 plus students. And we also need to recognize that Fort Collins isn't only CSU. It's a lot more, there's a lot more families, there's a lot more elders. And so working with both of our CSU students, asking them what they find or what they believe is something crucial to the city and what can be done, inviting those students to come with us, along with outreach towards the families and the elders within our community, so we can all go towards City Council, so we can all go towards the city of Fort Collins and really show what we stand for as a community.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just a reminder to the folks at home, you can drop your questions for the candidates into the live stream chat, and we will be asking candidates some of the questions from the live stream. Thank you very much. I have a specific question for Ms. Zuklic. Can you elaborate on how your campaign will work to collaborate with other universities across the state?
Yeah, so there is already something in place, and we just wanted to revamp this kind of. For lack of a better term, we call it a union, but it's just all the student body executives can get together. I think at Boulder they actually have 3 presidents. Their system looks a little bit differently than ours, but so since this is already a thing, it's not really our idea, but we want to revamp this again and really connect with all the other universities. We can all see what they're doing with their university at the time and get ideas from each other. And also, it would be pretty powerful if we all have the voice to speak to the government about what we would want to see changed for our schools.
Thank you very much. And we actually have a specific question for you from the chat. They say, you've advertised that in public events for students that you would sanction the undie run. How will you answer the concerns for those survivors of sexual harassment?
Okay, yeah, so my original or initial thoughts on the idea that the undie run results in sexual harassment, I kind of think that this reminds me of the narrative that we need to not perpetuate, that what a woman wears will result in her getting sexually harassed. Obviously, me being a woman, I totally understand this concern and empathize with it. However, I don't think that we should just settle for the assumption that if women want to be a part of the undie run or some other event like that, then boys will be boys, and it's going to happen inevitably. I think that we need to first try to address the men and put the pressure on the men to behave well, obviously, and that would definitely be at the forefront of rebranding this, to make sure that sexual harassment is denounced and that this could turn into an event that actually spreads awareness for the importance of consent and awareness for sexual harassment.
Thank you very much. Rebuttal from Ms. Gebretsadik.
What specific steps are you going to take to ensure that students are safe and that the boys will be boys is not a thing during the undie run, if sanctioned?
Ms. Zuklic?
Well, obviously there would have to be administrators and people out there, just like all the other times that the undie run happened. But this rebranding of it would make an impact, given that we would want to maybe change it into a charity event, as it did originate to be a charity event for donating clothes to the homeless. but instead we'd want to have a fee in order to participate, and this money we are thinking could be donated to family abuse services and women's shelters, and so this would be a huge teaching moment and about
Thank
the
you very
importance.
much.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Ms. Gebretsadik.
So when talking about ensuring safety, are you saying that there's going to be more policing and more security at this event?
Ms. Zuklic.
I haven't thought about it that deeply, but if it depends on the engagement of campus and their how they perceive this new rebranding. If it's taken well, I mean, again, the only way we can expect to change this narrative that how a woman dresses is contingent on if she will get sexually harassed, is if we can continue this conversation and make it so people know what this is all about. But we would definitely have to look into that more and decide if that's necessary.
Thank you, Ms. Zuklic. Rebuttal from Mr. Schroeder.
I just want to clarify that you said you haven't thought about it that deeply for a promise that you made on your Instagram account.
Ms. Zuklic.
Yeah, that was just in regards to Mary's question about how much policing and the funding. I think that this is something that would need to be researched, the funding of it, obviously, and how much that would cost and everything. So that it was thought about, just not that aspect of the question.
Thank you. Back to general questions. How is your campaign working to be accessible and inclusive to all members of the CSU campus, especially students with disabilities? Starting with Mr. Pringle.
That's an excellent question. Like I said before, we plan to table at least once a week just to get ASCSU's reputation out there that we're a welcoming and a force for change, pretty much, for the CSU campus. Because originally, I've never really thought of ASCSU as welcoming or inviting to me. I always thought you had to be born up into it, and that is very, very wrong. I've never been a part of ASCSU, and I'm obviously running for vice president. So we just, honestly, we want to hear from the students, and we want to know what you believe needs to be changed. And we will bring it up to, if we get elected, we'll bring it up in the meetings, and we are very passionate about getting students' input.
Thank you very much. Mr. Schroeder.
Thank you. Something that I would like to address is Lissa and I we made a mistake and we've learned from our mistake. Through being inclusive with the deaf community, we realized that our videos didn't originally have captions on them. And then we learned that that was something that was super, super important. And on its face value, of course it is. How could we not have thought of that? And then we thought of it. It was brought to us. And continuing that mindset of when we make mistakes, we can adapt. And through it, in the cultural representation aspect of what I bring to the table is learning where we come from, learning where we all want to go within our own communities, within our overall community, and really looking at what makes us strong and what makes us proud. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Zuklic.
Yeah, so one idea that Cinque and I had was to make a specific cabinet position for the representation of students with disabilities. We'd also like to be accessible in this way by having regular town hall meetings that we could get feedback. We'd want to actively seek this feedback, not just wait until it comes to us. We would also want to schedule meetings with clubs and other groups on campus that represent often marginalized groups, and we'd hope to get the most holistic view of feedback that we could from students.
Rebuttal, yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned how you want to create a specific executive position for marginalized identities and student disabilities. Do you not think that would be redundant, since we do have 2 senators that serve for the Student Disability Center, as well as my specific position as a Director of Diversity and Inclusion within the executive position?
Yeah, we haven't decided exactly logistically what that responsibility would entail for that specific position, but it could be a little redundant. However, I just think specifically more connected with the Center for Disabilities, so there is a direct avenue there for those people to have a more louder voice on campus, I guess.
Thank you, and I will give you 45 seconds to answer the question yourself.
Yes, Christian and I want to, throughout our campaign, have made sure that all of our social media posts and technological aspect of our campaigns have been accessible to all students, and that includes having closed captions. And I think that when campaigning, we also need to have a virtual component regardless of COVID or not. And so I think when thinking about accessibility, that comes with representing all students. And so we've done that throughout our platform for the remainder of our campaign.
Thank you very much. Just a reminder for folks now joining us, on the live stream chat, you can drop your questions for the candidates down into the chat, and we will be reading out some of those questions to the candidates. Thank you very much. For all of the candidates, what will you do as vice president to complement your running mate's leadership abilities within the executive branch of the ASCSU? Starting with Mr. Schroeder.
Could you repeat the question?
Yes. What will you do, or what do you bring to the table that will complement your running mate's leadership abilities within the executive branch of the ASCSU?
Thank you. What I will do as vice president to accommodate and also highlight Liz's leadership capabilities is something about myself is I'm very loose. I like working with people. I like engaging people on random things. And so through that, learning where people come from on base issues, complex issues, learning their perspective, and then bringing Liz into the table and really showing, okay, she's going to be that voice and that outlet for changing and being on a larger scale. So what I'm saying in more succinct terms is I'm going to engage the students, I'm going to engage our office, and I'm going to work with her so she can engage in making it a reality. Thank you
very much. Ms. Gebretsadik.
Yeah, with Christian and I both having ASCSU experience, and Christian being the current Speaker of the House, and me being in the executive branch, I think we complement each other well in the fact that we have an array of knowledge on ASCSU and have the component of having those different connections throughout CSU in general. And so we complement each other in the way that he has knowledge on some things within ASCSU that I may not, and I have some that he does not. And so we're able to complement each other in the fact that we have the knowledge and we understand the complexity of ASCSU, and we're able to help each other in the fact that we're going to get things going as soon as we are elected, if elected.
Thank you very much. Mr. Pringle?
That's a great question. John and I have known each other for the past 3 years, so we always obviously have a very healthy communication stream between us, and we always have debates, and it's always just, we always like constantly talking to each other just because we love debating. We love knowing the other side, and him being in business and me being in civil engineering, our brains work vastly different, and just that communication just helps us realize that there's not just one type of person out there. There's many, many different types of people. And just like today with the candlelight visual for Boulder, we debated for hours on end just to see if I should skip this and go there. But we realized that it would be better for me to stay here and split our efforts so that there is a connection out there while we're still in here telling our ideas.
Thank you very much. Ms. Zuklic?
Yeah, Sinke and I are a very compatible team, I think. We're both very sociable with people. I'm a naturally social person, also just like Sinke, and I think that I feel very fulfilled by helping others and thinking that I'm leaving an impact on them. And this is why I think I would innately be able to get motivated in order to do all of my power necessary in order to help the betterment of the CSU students. Sinke is a natural born leader, and I, being the vice presidential candidate, am the only candidate out of us that is a business major, which actually directly correlates with the main responsibility of the vice president as they chair the Student Fee Review Board. I think that this is important to have a common, thank you.
Thank you very much. And have I gotten to you, Ms. Gebretsadik?
Yes.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
I actually have a question specifically for you.
Yeah.
In one of your campaign videos, Mr. Dixon talked about knowing intimately what the problems within the ASCSU were. What would you say is the biggest challenge they face, and how will you work to help it?
I think one of the biggest challenges within ASCSU is that aspect of transparency. I feel like a lot of miscommunication occurs within ASCSU, especially within the different branches, and it all comes down to that lack of communication. And so if we were able to strengthen the channel of communication that is trying to be built as a current member of the executive branch, I see the efforts, but I think there needs to be more of that channel of communication for different branches to have access to each other and really get to know each other on a personal level, because at the end of the day, we're all students and we're all humans, and we need to get to know each other on that friendly basis in order to really work together as a community.
Thank you. Rebuttal from Mr. Schroeder.
With Christian being the current Speaker of the Senate, what has he done to, one, alleviate the tensions between the branches and also alleviate the tensions within the Senate?
Great question. As far as I know, Christian has done a lot within his speaker position, including accessibility within the Zoom platform, and he's also worked with different branches within the executive, within different departments of the executive branch, and so he's worked closely with myself, and I know other members within the executive branch that he's worked closely with in order to collaborate on different issues that we're working on. For example, food insecurity. We've worked on bills together. Christian has worked with our...
Thank you very much, Ms. Gebretsadik. Mr. Schroeder.
Would you agree that the tensions within ASCSU have gotten higher since the past 2 years?
Ms. Gebretsadik.
Yes, I definitely think that the tensions have risen, although I do see a lot of effort being made in order to alleviate these tensions, but it doesn't happen overnight. I think it's a long-term process, and that's a process that needs to keep occurring in order to really alleviate the tension and really bring everybody together.
Thank you very much. For everybody, what is the first thing that you and your running mate will work on when you take office if you are elected for the next semester? Starting with Ms. Zuklic.
So when we take office, hopefully we'd have a competent onboarding period so we could kind of get the current administration's everything that they have to teach us and work off of that. I think the first thing that we would do ourselves could be making sure that everyone is being safe again, so we can have these events that we hope will help the student body come together and again reinstill a strong sense of Ram pride on campus.
Thank you. Mr. Pringle.
We know that a big issue with the CSU campus is the parking. So ASCSU cannot directly impact the parking costs or the parking of tickets, but we plan to start that talk with the transportation and parking services to maybe half the price for students who want to park on campus, whether that be using a CSU ID or whatever that is. And we know parking tickets are just crazy. So we plan to, again, communicate with that transportation and parking services to maybe possibly half the price of a ticket, just because we know it is a financial strain for some students to come on campus and pay that $12 for a daily park or $2 an hour for parking. We really care about what students want, and that's been a huge issue throughout all our platforms about what students want to see in this campus, and we do plan to communicate that.
Thank you very much. Ms. Gebretsadik.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, Christian and I are aware that we don't have all the solutions and we don't know all the problems. And so during the onboarding process, we want to ensure that every student is aware of the different positions within the cabinet. And we also want to work on codifying the application process for the Student Fee Review Board. And in that, in terms of policy, we want to work closely with the City Council in order to get rid of U+2, because as a current member of the executive branch, we've been continuously writing emails to the City Council, and U+2 is only going to be gone if we are consistent in that, and so we want to continue working on the projects we are already working on.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Schroeder.
The first thing that Liz and I would do, say we got the opportunity to serve as president and vice president, is instituting a mental health app for all CSU students. All. Something that we know the resources that are available, however, it takes time to go get those resources and then find the resource that's tailored to you, whether you need victim assistance, whether you need whatever it may be. I was in a meeting the other week with the Student Resolution Center, and it was looking at the resources you can get and then going to the website, finding what you need. Having it on your phone, working with the health network to get this app on your phone, it takes away, say, 3 minutes of looking up the Student Resolution Center. It takes away that time to look up what you need versus pulling up your phone and having it right there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have time for one more general question before our brief 5-minute intermission. How will your campaign interact with the incoming freshmen next year? Starting with Mr. Pringle.
Like I said many times before, we really do want a presence on campus, whether that be tabling for at least one time a week. We just really want to know students' inputs and what they care and what they want to see from their campus. And freshmen obviously are a huge part of this campus because they're fresh and new here. We want to get the word out that ASCSU exists and that we want to know how to help the students, because I've personally never been confronted by an ASCSU member asking, hey, what would you like to see on this campus? So we really do encourage everyone, if we get elected, to come to our table on the plaza and get that information, give us that information, what they want to see changed.
Thank you. Mr. Schroeder?
Tying along with some of David and John's ideas, we want to not only be on the plaza for these incoming freshmen, we want to go around the dorms. Yes, COVID might still be a thing, so we might not be able to go within them, but being in the dorm centers and talking with students. Do you know what ASCSU is? Do you know what ASCSU can do? Would you like to be a part of ASCSU? Working with them, because they're the new faces of CSU. They spend a lot of time on campus, one, by living in the dorms, and two, walking around the campus because it's something new and fresh. But also working with, because currently I know a good amount of freshmen right now. So talking with those freshmen and then having them talk with the incoming freshmen. Because I know went to a high school in Colorado, a lot of students either go to CSU or Boulder, and so working with our entire community throughout where we grew up. Thank you
very much. Ms. Zuklic?
Yeah, so I think that we would definitely try to maintain a very active social media presence and seek engagement from these incoming freshmen. Along with that, we do hope to create an ASCSU app that would be a comprehensive app that students can use and know more about what ASCSU is, and they can communicate with us. We would have contact information through that. I think that this would better represent what we're going to do, and it could be more accessible because a lot of people think that apps are a lot more convenient these days than just going to our website. But I think that that would be really great to have this ongoing communication with these freshmen to see how they want their college experience to be dictated.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Gebretsadik?
Yeah, as a former resident assistant, orientation leader, and a current coordinator for the campus tours and visits for the College of Liberal Arts, I've had the opportunity to work firsthand and really listen to incoming students who have voiced their concerns to me and have really shared their excitement about coming to CSU and being a RAM. And so I think what needs to happen is that there needs to be a coalition and there needs to be a channel of communication with housing and dining, with orientation and transition programs, as well as the different ambassador groups across campus within different colleges.
Thank you very much. And before we leave for our quick intermission, I would just like to remind the chat that if you have any questions for the candidates, please drop them in the live stream chat, and we will be reading some of those to the candidates tonight. Thank you very much. Rams, we will be back in about 5 minutes. We will be taking an intermission. Thank you very much.
It's finally that time of year, Rams. The ASCSU spring election for your student government is here. ASCSU is responsible for funding so many important programs, such as Ramride, student organizations, Transport, the Rec Center, Rams Against Hunger, and so much more.
Candidates for president and vice president, speaker of the Senate, and senators have started campaigning on the plaza, so get out and engage with your student body government. This is the time and opportunity to make your voice heard, so get out and vote. Keep an eye out for QR codes around campus for easy and quick access to voting information. Students will be able to vote for candidates on March 30th, March 31st, and April 1st for the 2021 ASCSU elections.
This is the vice presidential debate for the ASCSU for the 2021-2022 term. We will be starting off again with a general question from the chat. The roles and responsibilities of the VP is to chair the Student Fee Review Board. What experience do the hopeful vice presidents have with finance and business? Starting with you, Mr. Pringle.
So personally, I do not have much of experience other than taking a economics class here at CSU, but personally, with my own money, I've been saving up from very, very young age, so I'm very conscientious of what money means, and I'm not just going to go out there and spend a bunch of money. We're really, really big on fundraising right now. Our campaign, we want to help those organizations get cheaper costs for campus activities, just because money is a big issue for many students at CSU. Not a lot of people can just shove out tons of cash to do whatever they want.
Thank you very much. Ms. Zuklic?
Yeah, so as I already mentioned, I am a business administration major, and I'm concentrating in both finance and accounting. And so I would think that I'm very qualified to fill this role of chairing the Student Fee Review Board, as I know how to prepare budgets, allocate costs, review the costs too, all like that. It's important for the VP to have a understandable knowledge of all of this, and I have that going into it, which I think is really important. All of this stuff actually directly correlates with my major and my future field of work, so I think that I'm very well set up to do this job.
Thank you. Mr. Schroeder?
Thank you. I want to start off by saying I was on the youth board of Young Americans Bank back in the 2015-2016 year, and I got firsthand experience at that young age to really understand the larger, more business, more large-scale aspects of money and allocating of said money. And through that experience, I also worked with my parents. My mom got a degree in economics, and throughout my life, I've worked on budgeting, worked on talking with people about allocating money. I've run my own business. Further, I'm very personable towards people, and so when going towards different spots on campus and finding what money needs to be allocated to those centers, to those organizations, I'm going to be able to see if they do need that money. I'm going to be able to see if they're just asking or fishing for more money, whether they need it or not. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Gebretsadik?
Yeah, I think it's really important to recognize that the ASCSU budget is around $1.3 million, which is a lot of money of our student fees. And so students are paying that tab. And I think it's important to have experience within ASCSU in knowing where that money is going and how that's trickling down within our university. And with me being part of the executive branch and having a position with the Department of Diversity and Inclusion, I also am responsible for thousands of dollars within my discretionary fund. And so I not only have experience within ASCSU, but I also sit in on the Commission for Diversity and Inclusion, where we also talk about budgeting and how to fundraise and how to allocate that money in an essential and important way.
Thank you very much. Just a reminder to Rams that any question that you will, please excuse me, questions dropped into the chat of the live stream will possibly be read out to the candidates. So please leave your questions in the live stream chat. Thank you very much. And this question actually comes from the chat for Mr. Schroeder. You talk about how important learning about other communities are. Why did it take so long to accommodate ADA accessibility codes on your Instagram?
I believe, and to be frank, I wasn't sure when the first complaint, and I don't want to use complaint, I want to use somebody who addressed us about not having ADA accommodations. I want to say, in what I said earlier, we made a mistake, and we've learned from it. Something from me personally is I didn't recognize the aspects and the importance of the disabled's needs. I looked at the cultural centers, I looked at cultural education, and I saw this CSU Student Disability Center, and I put it on our page, and I didn't learn more. And through this past month, I've learned more, and I continue and hope to keep learning. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. For everybody, Campus engagement, voting, and overall interest in the ASCSU has been low for quite some time. Why do you think this is the case, and how are you working to increase student interest? Starting with Ms. Zuklic.
Yeah, so I think that what we want to do to try to cast a wider net over CSU population of students is that we want to have an application available to everyone in order to, if they want to express interest of being part of the cabinet. We want to give everyone a fair and equitable chance, and I think that spreading this awareness around would give people more opportunities to be directly involved in our campaign and our potential presidency and make a real difference. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Gebretsadik.
I think when I think about Christian and I's campaign, I think about how we're the only campaign that has the faces of other students on our campaign pages, because we understand the importance of storytelling, and we understand that as a student, it's really important to see your face in others. And so in order to enhance engagement, we've told the stories of other students, we've invited, and I think when students say, hey, I'm also in that club and I'm also interested in this, I think it builds that community. And I think also just creating those channels of communications across campus with different organizations, different professors, our advisors, and just with the experience that Christian and I have, we have the different avenues and we have the connections to make this happen.
Thank you very much. Mr. Pringle?
Could you restate the question, please?
Yes, I can. Campus engagement, voting, and overall interest in the ASCSU has been low for quite some time. Why do you think this is the case, and how are you working to increase student interest?
So being one of those students that voted maybe once for ASCSU elections, I completely get it. It's boring that you have to go through so many hoops and hurdles just to get to a voting place. And we can't really do much about that because it's all ran through RamWeb. But if we get elected, we just want to make that presence on campus noted, and we want to let people know that ASCSU is out there. We're working for you. We want to make the best place for the students of CSU. And many people don't recognize that. They think it's just a place for business majors, or it's just a meeting place pretty much. And we want to get out the fact that we are here for you guys, and we want to help you guys out, and we think the best candidates should always get their voice.
Thank you very much. I will allow rebuttal after Mr. Schroeder has answered the question himself.
And could you restate the question, please?
Yes. Campus engagement, voting, and overall interest in the ASCSU has been low for quite some time. Why do you think this is the case, and how are you working to increase student interest?
To first start, I believe the case of lack of interest has come from how it's been approached, how I was originally approached. I was sent an email, become a senator of this organization. There wasn't an incentive for me to do it. Yes, I could be a senator, I could put it on my resume, but what was the interest? What was the intrigue of this larger organization? There wasn't any. It was, here's an application, sign up to be a senator. What we aim to do is, one, go on the plaza, especially during the beginning of the semester, and actually to come back, it's for the cabinet, actually going around on the plaza currently, going on the plaza and going throughout different dorms throughout Clark, talking to people and understanding what they want to do, what they're good at, and why they want to be on ASCSU. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schroeder. Ms. Gebretsadik?
Yeah, I was just going to say that going off of what David said, I agree that the resources to get involved with ASCSU is there. I just think that what's lacking is accessibility to those resources and how to get involved. And so that's why Christian and I have worked with SDPS offices, the Student Diversity Program Services, and I actually served as the senator for the Black and African American Cultural Center. And so I think when it comes to accessibility, we need to make sure that students are getting this information and have accessible access to getting involved.
Thank you very much. This is a question from the chat directed for you, Mary. This is your second time running for the office of vice president, and your past running mate is actively supporting another campaign. What is the difference between your commitment this time around?
I think the fact that I'm running again shows my commitment to ASCSU and my commitment to making an impact within ASCSU, because although I did not win the vice presidential race last semester, I made a commitment to continue on working within ASCSU, and that is why I serve as the current Director of Diversity and Inclusion. And I think that just shows how my values of radical inclusion, transparency, and stewardship show with my commitment with ASCSU and really changing and progressing within this organization.
Thank you. Rebuttal from Mr. Schroeder.
What has stopped you from running for president of ASCSU?
Ms. Gebretsadik.
I think that's just a personal preference of the position that I want to run for. I want to grow in the aspect of overseeing the ASCSU budget of almost $1.3 million. And I think that with my running mate, Christian, we both bring different values, and we also have that shared commitment for transparency, radical inclusion, and stewardship. And so I want to grow in the areas of the ASCSU budget, and I feel like I'm best allowed to do that through my vice presidential role.
Thank you very much. This question is for everybody. If only 40% of students are even aware of the ASCSU, I feel town hall meetings won't be reaching everyone who's marginalized. How will you reach out to all of the people and not just those already involved? Starting with Mr. Pringle.
Like I keep on saying, we plan to have a great campus presence. We want to be out there on the plaza at least once a week, just to get your input, because we know a lot of people don't care about ASCSU. Like, I really didn't care about ASCSU before I started actually learning what they're due and what their goals are, and they line up with mine. And I feel like this should be a welcoming community and not a community that people are scared and run from. So that campus interactions that John and I feel are just super important, just to get their inputs, because people of ASCSU don't know what the vast majority of CSU campus people want. So we just really want to be on campus at least once a week, just to get that input.
Thank you very much. Mr. Schroeder?
Could you restate the question, please?
Yes. Sorry, excuse me. If only 40% of students are even aware of the ASCSU, I feel town hall meetings won't be reaching anyone who is marginalized. How will you reach out to all of the people and not just those who are already involved?
Two ways I'll approach this. First, how I've seen ASCSU in these town halls has been professionalism versus personability. It's only this professional aspect of what we can do. And yes, that's what you want. You want to be professional when going about it. But when you don't understand the people who are conducting the town halls, you're not going to be intrigued to actually participate. On the second half of it, on engaging more people, it's my stake of being culturally representative. Having the space and the opportunities for people to learn more about each other, and then hosting town meetings that, say last week, the shooting in Atlanta and the hate crime against Asian Americans. That's not an issue only for Asian Americans. That's an issue for all of us, all communities. And so going to those town halls and listening to each other, we can provide it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Gebretsadik.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to acknowledge, when I first joined ASCSU, it was very intimidating to be in that space, and I can see that sometimes there's certain groups that dominate that space. So that's why I think it's important to take the initiative to make those relationships with different organizations and different programs across campus. And throughout my roles within ASCSU, I've made that commitment, and I've been doing the work to create those channels of communications with international community, with the key communities, with housing and dining, and just all over campus within the dean's councils. And I think it comes with just that first step of just having that communication. And when you have that channel of communication, it creates a foundation that is strong and will last forever.
Thank you very much. Ms. Zuklic?
Yeah, as I said before, a lot of my actual close friends didn't even know what ASCSU was going into this, and it will be their first time voting this time. I think that we're already making an impact just over social media through having a lot of these social circles that go to CSU, repost a lot of our media and everything like that. I think that we'd also would want to schedule regular meetings with a lot of different groups or chapters or clubs that represent often marginalized groups here on campus. We would definitely also want to bring forums to campus that could facilitate discussions that would benefit our community here too.
Thank you very much. Just a reminder for the folks at home, we will be reading some of the questions that we pull from the live stream chat. So if you have questions for the candidates that you would like answered, please leave them in the live stream chat below. Thank you. This is a question for everyone. How will you acknowledge the CSU community who are against the COVID-19 vaccine, and how will you ensure their safety as well? Starting with Ms. Gebretsadik.
I think when talking about community engagement, that includes all students within ASCSU. So regardless of COVID, I think it's really important to have that online virtual hybrid component in order to ensure that all students are able to participate. And as far as for those who are against the vaccine, I think we need to work closely with the Health Network Center, and I also think we need to work with the administration in order to ensure that all students are included, because we all, at the end of the day, are one big family.
Thank you very much. Mr. Schroeder?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Yes. How will you acknowledge the CSU community who are against the COVID-19 vaccine, and how will you assure their safety as well?
Something that I want to touch on and what I've touched on earlier in this debate, personal accountability. Something that I believe everybody should have access to getting the vaccine by fall. All of our CSU Rams having the ability to get the vaccine, I find, is most important. And then further with that, having the information about the current side effects of the vaccine, because it is new. A lot of people are skeptic of it. So having them, giving them the resources to show what it does, what we don't know what it does yet, and etc., but also promoting the personal accountability. As Mary said, virtual hybrid classes are important, and it's good to have those to keep safety for people who don't want it or who don't want to participate right now because they might feel sick. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Zuklic?
I think going about this would definitely involve an education and advocating for the science behind the vaccine and how that could affect everyone. I think that this is, again, backed by science, and there's a moral component of it as well, but definitely people will still be wearing masks around then, I think, so I hope that that would protect a vast majority of Rams to begin with, and I think that we'll probably still have spit tests available to ensure that people know when they are sick and when they're not. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Pringle?
Like previously said, integrity plays a huge role in the campus safety and those people who aren't willing to take that vaccine. We just ask to do the bare minimum of just wearing a mask. And that would go a long ways just for now and into the future, just because it is proven that masks help. And whether or not you trust the vaccine or not, we count on herd immunity. Like even politics nowadays, they count on herd immunity to help the society build and outgrow COVID.
Rebuttal from Ms. Gebretsadik.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate, as everyone has mentioned, it's also important to recognize that Black, Indigenous people of color might not feel comfortable in getting the vaccine due to the mistrust within vaccines and just the history of medicine. And so I think it's important to also take into account the education that may need to take place in order to ensure that BIPOC students, Black, Indigenous people of color feel comfortable in taking the vaccine, because there is that equity issue when it comes to medicine and marginalized communities.
Thank you very much. Rebuttal from Mr. Schroeder.
Something to tie along with what you were just saying on the note of personal accountability. People, you Rams, you and your choices have power, and it has impacts on your fellow community. Just recognize that, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A question for you, Mr. Pringle. What do you see as being one of your campaign's biggest hurdles if you were to win the election, and how do you plan to address that?
I don't really see many hurdles, but a big issue that we see is trying to get people from get the president to be able to vote on the board of governors, because right now we are able to talk on the Board of Governors, but we aren't able to vote. And that is going to be a huge problem just because they do allocate 97% of the students' tuition, while ASCSU personally only handles 3% of the students' tuition. But so we feel, as part of the CSU community, we feel like we should be able to handle a lot more of that tuition, and a big major way to get that would be through getting a voter presence on that Board of Governors.
Thank you very much. A question for all of you now. How will you adapt your administration's promises when or if they don't work out? Starting with you, Mr. Schroeder.
One, really recognizing what we set out to do and making that clear throughout the process of the goals that we aim to achieve, such as allocating funds back to Uber and Lyft and or Ram Cash, and also on the possibility of if and when we don't get these initiatives fleshed out, creating solutions, creating structures of, okay, this didn't work out. Why didn't it work out? What am I going to create? What are we going to create so it will work out? And maybe not it specifically, but further initiatives, further ideas that do benefit the students and that the students feel that is the best choice that we can make going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Zuklic?
Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
Yes. How will you adapt your administration's promises if or when they don't work out?
So we haven't promised anything yet, but and I do think that all of our visions are very attainable and feasible, but had that been the case, I think that we would acknowledge it first of all, and then try to use critical and creative thinking to try to think of a new way to go about this that would have the same impact on the students at large, in order to make sure that they know we're still trying to get the same goal across. There just might be some hurdles in the way, that particular avenue. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pringle?
Like previously stated, we really just want to own up to our mistakes and learn from them. We want to just be accountable, whether that be if we know we messed up or some student on the plaza when we are just out there says, hey, you messed this up. We want to be upfront and completely transparent, saying, yes, we did. What could we do to fix it? Or next time, if this happens again, how do we fix it then? And we just want to move forward and learn, because we're human. We're always going to mess up and make mistakes. So we just really want to be accountable and learn from those mistakes.
Thank you very much. Ms. Gebretsadik?
So one of the core values that Christian and I are running on is transparency. And so transparency doesn't just include when something is working, but also when things are not working, and being honest when something fails and when something is progressing. And so Christian and I have made a commitment to being transparent and building that channel of communication and commitment to the students so that they know where every student dollar is going and what we're working on, so that when students see what we're working on, they're able to get involved because they're skilled in the different things that we're working on.
Thank you very much. Rebuttal from Mr. Schroeder.
I just want to clarify, when making those student dollars, every student dollar being accessible for all students, how could you make that in an easy to read, easy to engage format so people aren't just compacted with information that they don't understand?
I think it's important to have accessibility. So working with the director of marketing within the executive branch and really working to make a website so that students are aware that we do have a budget of almost $1.3 million, and how is that being cut up and how is that money being used is really important. And I think that we need to make it accessible in the way of saying, hey, $20 was spent on this, you still need to know about that because these are student fees.
Thank you very much. And we have a question from the chat for you, Ms. Gebretsadik. What is your plan on ensuring gender-neutral bathrooms across campus?
Yeah, so as the current director of diversity and inclusion within the executive branch within ASCSU, I have actually worked with different senators across the SCPS offices in working with administration in order, for example, Clark does not have a gender-neutral bathroom. And so why is that, and why can't we make that happen? I've worked with different administration different administrators across campus and different senators within ASCSU to ask these tough questions and to help also give funding towards projects like this.
Thank you very much. And a question for Ms. Zuklic. One of the central tenets of your campaigns is reducing carbon emissions on campus. How do you plan to address this?
Well, we plan to address this by bringing carbon capturing technology to campus, and that would be in the form of the bio-urban tree. It's on our Instagram and website, so there's links there that you guys could go check it out and learn more about it. Basically, what it does is eliminates the amount of carbon dioxide that 368 amount of trees does, and so it would just help us for the future and be a great addition to the campus, given CSU's strong and paramount reputation for sustainability thus far. Thank you.
Rebuttal, starting with Mr. Schroeder. I'll allow you to respond, Ms. Zuklic.
Yeah. So addressing the first question, I think that we need to have the opinion of a landscaper to see where they would be. I am not going to take that amount of time to do it, but I mean, I also think that mental health accessibility is probably more important. However, this budget for the urban tree would not come directly from ASCSU's. Cinque is Joyce McConnell's only intern, and he has run this idea by her, and she thinks that it's a great idea and thinks that it's totally feasible to bring to campus. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then rebuttal from Mr. Pringle.
So a quick Google search, and you'll find that these trees cost $50,000. I would not like to pay $50,000 to these trees. I'd rather my money go out to something that would actually be useful for me, because Fort Collins already has a good reputation on air pollution, and from the company that it was created from is from Mexico, and they're not a well-established company. So it's not like you're getting a quality product. It's just a little bit algae and some water. So just shoving, sorry.
Thank you very much. Would you like to respond?
Yeah, right. So we wouldn't be bringing trees plural. We would just be bringing one bio-urban tree. And this budget is totally attainable given the vast amount of money that CSU administration has to work with for the betterment of our campus. And again, like I said, Joyce McConnell said herself that she thinks that this would be a great idea, and it would only be one, so $50,000. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Rebuttal from Ms. Gebretsadik.
I just want to reiterate the fact that within that $1.3 million budget, $300,000 of that goes to payroll, and then $200,000 goes to BSOF, and then $100,000 goes to Senate, and then $720,000 goes to Rocky Mountain Student Media Corporations, and that $70,000 goes to USA Today and New York Times contracts. And so I just want students to be aware of where that money is going and how attainable some of these projects are.
Yeah, so again, that would not come out of the ASCU budget. It would come out of just CSU's, and there is a huge sunk fund that can attain that amount of money. So it would not directly be from student fees and would not have an effect on making them go higher or anything like that. Thank you.
I will allow one more rebuttal from Mr. Pringle, and then Ms. Zuklic, you will have a chance to respond.
So you say it doesn't come directly from the students' tuition. How are they getting that money for that huge budget you say they have?
So it's not a budget, it's a fund that CSU already has made available to projects like this that would implement the betterment of campus. I'm not an expert, obviously, on CSU's budgeting and all the money that they have in funds, but all I'm saying is that we know that this is attainable and feasible given the knowledge from Joyce. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And this question is for all candidates. Can the candidates speak on how involved they will be with their presidents in the hiring process for the cabinet? and to what extent they will seek out qualified, diverse, and inclusive candidates from our 30,000 Rams and not the few hundred in the ASCSU circles. Starting with Mr. Schroeder. Ms. Gebretsadik.
Can you repeat that question one more time?
Yes. Can you speak on how involved you will be with your president in the hiring process for the cabinet, and to what extent you'll seek out qualified, diverse, and inclusive candidates from the 30,000 Rams and not just the few hundred in the ASCSU circles?
Yeah, I think something that's important to acknowledge is the fact that being student body president and vice president is teamwork, and you are a team. And so I would work very closely with Christian in ensuring that this process is not only equitable, but is very inclusive. And what does that mean? That means reaching out to professors, reaching out to the different deans of different colleges, working with the different student diversity program services, and working with Slice, who has access to these over 500 organizations on campus, and also reaching out to my networks within my positions within ASCSU, and ensuring that everyone has equal access to being able to apply to these positions and being aware of them.
Thank you. Mr. Pringle?
Like previously stated, we plan to have a huge on-campus presence. So that would be one way to get that non-ASCSU member to be part of our cabinet, just get a new voice. Also, if possible, we would love to send out a mass email, because I know everyone loves that so much, but just telling that this position is available and how important it is just to get different input, because we don't want to see the same people from ASCSU in ASCSU. We want to see new faces, we want new ideas, and we want a new perspective.
Thank you. And I would like to apologize to the viewers at home. It would seem that one of our microphones has gone out during one of the questions. I will re-ask Mr. Schroeder the question. We will be working on technical difficulties throughout. Thank you very much. Mr. Schroeder, can you speak on how involved you will be with your president in the hiring process for the cabinet, and to what extent you will seek out qualified, diverse, and inclusive candidates from the pool of 30,000 Rams?
100%. What I aim to do is obviously work 100% with Liz on creating our cabinet for ASCSU, because we do want to include diverse and inclusive environment. How we'd go about this is obviously going around the plaza, going around the campus as a whole. We do only have, I believe, 3 weeks, say we got the opportunity to serve to find this cabinet position, or these cabinet positions. And also, I would actually want to create a whiteboard with what the terms are, or what the position is, and just having a small QR code. This is your application. You can come sign up, and then before they sign up, working with the students, what do you find appealing? Let's figure something out, and working with other student organizations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schroeder. And Ms. Zuklic.
Yeah, so Sinke and I already intend to make an application process regarding the specific duties of all the people in our cabinet, and I think that this would give us a comprehensive view of what types of candidates would best fulfill these views to do. And also, we would make this widely available by spreading it throughout social media, having the link widely available on our social media, on our website. I think we would also want to have mass emails and just make it so people know and have this opportunity for themselves. Thank you.
Rebuttal from Mr. Schroeder.
I just want to clarify, you stated one link instead of multiple links because there are multiple cabinet positions. do you intend on creating multiple links and multiple ways of accessing it, or one link and then they find out what they want to file?
Yeah, it would definitely be one link that would probably go to the website, and then have a comprehensive list of the explanations of each specific cabinet position. Yeah, it wouldn't be multiple links within our bio on Instagram. It would definitely be one to go to a different link tree. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just a reminder to the folks at home, there is still time to put your questions in the live stream chat if you have anything you would like to ask the candidates. Thank you very much. This is for everybody. What will you do to ensure the retention of first-generation students? Starting with Ms. Zuklic.
I think to do this, we would want to have a conversation with them and start this so that people know that, I mean, especially in this pandemic, it's hard to make friends and to feel like you're included and that you're welcomed here. But again, with the events here, we would want to make sure that everyone feels included. I think last year, or this current year's freshmen really got the short end of the stick, and we would want to make sure that everyone who's new here and first-generation college students would feel welcomed. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gebretsadik.
Yeah, as a first-generation student, I know firsthand how challenging it can be to coming to college and not knowing what you don't know. And as a member of the First-Generation Steering Committee, as well as the Commission for Diversity and Inclusion, as well as a representative for the President's Multicultural Council, I have been working closely with administration and other students to ensure that resources on campus are accessible, especially for first-generation students. And I've also started a first-generation initiative within my college, the College of Liberal Arts Ambassador team, in ensuring that incoming students are aware of the different resources that we have on campus. Because
thank you very much. Mr. Pringle?
That was an excellent way to answer that question. And personally, for our campaign, it ties very nicely into that on-campus presence. We want to know what you see is wrong, what we can do to help. We want to let you guys know that there are facilities out there to help these types of students, whether it doesn't matter what type of student you are, there are facilities out there. There's a group for you out there. There's an organization that is here to help you.
Thank you. Mr. Schroeder.
I want to start by telling a story of one of my dear friends. He is a first-generation student, and on his first semester, we were actually both, is my freshman year, his first year. He took 15 credits, he got a job on CSU, and he also had an external job as being a reservist Marine. He had his schedule busy. He had, I forget his major now, but he was very busy. But he didn't have the resources to learn about the financial opportunities to help alleviate some of the financial stresses that he had, but also he wasn't aware of the other campus opportunities of involvement, being in a club, being in an organization, which, and this is personally subjective, when I'm more busy, I find ways to manage my time easier, and so implying that mindset, implying those resources, and giving that to people, it would help out, and we'll put on our Instagram. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Rebuttal from Ms. Gebretsadik.
Yeah, going off of what Weston just mentioned, I definitely agree with him. And I also want to reiterate the fact that sometimes students don't really know what first generation really means. I know that as an incoming freshman, I didn't know what that word meant, and I didn't know that I belonged to that community. So I think we also need to have more conversations about what it truly means to be a first generation student. And I think we need to have more conversations. So
I agree.
Thank you very much. This one is for Mr. Pringle. One of your campaign platforms focuses on having a larger voice in local government. How do you plan to address this?
Like I said, there's already a voice in the Board of Governors. It's just that we don't have a vote. Board of Governors, they listen to us. They know that people at CSU, they know what they want. But what lacks is that vote on the Board of Governors. We plan to get the president able to vote on that Board of Governors, so we have actually a say in what we see on campus. Because right now we do have a voice, but we feel like that's not enough to make a big change in the CSU campus.
Thank you very much. This question is for everyone. In the event the ASCSU president can no longer serve in office for any reason whatsoever, how ready are you to assume the roles and duties of the president's office? Starting with you, Mr. Schroeder.
Currently, I haven't thought about that possibility. I've thought about it, but I haven't thought of me fulfilling it. And say Liz wasn't able to fulfill on the services, I would take that challenge. I would take that opportunity and embody it, because I know it's possible, and I know when working with the cabinet that I would have established, and when working with the organizations and the friendships and relationships that I already have, and just letting them know that I need a level of support because I am taking on this larger role, I know that I can get it done, and I know that I can make a lasting impact on this campus while also keeping Listen on the loop, just so she knows what's going on, even though she's not in the position anymore. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Zuklic.
Yeah, so being a business major, I like to think of myself as a pretty effective communicator. I think that I'm a pretty personable person, which means that I hope that I'm accessible to students and very approachable in that sense. So with that being said, I think that I would be a good leader. If a key component of being an effective leader is having people that are there that care and that will listen and that will approach you and let you know what they need of you. I think that if this were to happen, I could do it I could do it well, but I hope that won't. But thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Gebretsadik.
I think that if Christian was not able to fulfill his duties, I would be 100% ready to take on that responsibility, because a part of that teamwork is understanding each other's role and really overseeing what we both are doing together. And so by shadowing each other and working together in the commitments that we are promising with our different values, I think it's important to acknowledge the role that Christian has and being able to take on those duties. And I think that I see myself as a bridge builder and a great leader, and I would be 100% ready to take on that responsibility.
Thank you. Mr. Schroeder, I will allow rebuttal as soon as Mr. Pringle has answered the question himself. Mr. Pringle.
That's an excellent question. With John and I being such good friends, we tell each other everything. We know a very, very efficient way to communicate. So if we get elected, I plan to be right there by his side, knowing what he's doing, knowing what's happening. And if he wasn't able to perform his duties as president, I can easily step up into that suit. And the main point is getting those good cabinet positions filled by different people, whether they be from ASCSU or not being from ASCSU. Just having that good foundation, because without that good foundation, everything crumbles. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pringle. Mr. Schroeder?
I have a brief question for Mary, and then if it's say you move to presidency, or any of us move to presidency, would the speaker then become the vice president? Do I have that correct?
No, it would be the second place winners of the presidential candidates.
Okay, cool. So then following that question, you said you were a good bridge builder. How would you bridge the gap of somebody, so let's say, I am just asking questions. Would it be me, say I got second, would it be me, the VP, going to that position, or would it be Liz, the presidential candidate, moving into that position?
I believe it's the vice president, but I'm not completely 100% sure. And I also want to ensure the fact that one of the core values that Christian and I are running on is transparency. And so throughout this process, we would ensure that we're being transparent with the students and what the process of that is and what's happening in order to ensure that the onboarding process for the person that would take over that vice presidential role is fully equipped to take on that role.
Thank you. Ms. Zuklic.
Yeah, this actually isn't a rebuttal. This is just a clarification. The reason that I said that I hope that this hypothetical situation doesn't happen is because I thoroughly enjoy working with Cinque, and I would rather it keep going that way. Thank you.
Thank you. A general question for everyone. How does your administration plan to work with student diversity programs and services to support BIPOC academic achievement and prosperity? Starting with you, Ms. Gebretsadik.
Yeah, so as a student that has worked with the different student diversity program services, and as a former representative of the Black African American Cultural Center, and sitting in the different boards across campus for Commission for Diversity and Inclusion, and sitting on the PEMSAC board, I'm already doing the work to ensure that we have equity and an inclusive environment within ASCSU and just CSU overall. And so I think what needs to happen is a strengthening of those relationships within the administration and just the scope of CSU's campus.
Thank you. Mr. Schroeder.
Something that I want to reemphasize on what I said earlier. Issues and events that pertain to one group don't only pertain to one group. They affect the whole. They affect the whole community. So could you restate the very end of the question, please?
Yes. How does your administration plan to work with student diversity programs and services to support BIPOC academic achievement and prosperity?
Yeah. So with that saying, it's an issue that affects us all. It affects every cultural center. It affects every student organization, because as a community, as a CSU community, we want to have high overall academic achievement. And we all want to see each other in a new space. We all want to see each other prosper. And if BIPOC, and I keep spacing on the end, but that other, all communities, we want to see each other grow. We don't want to see each other falter. And a way to do it is talking with one another and learning with each other. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Zuklic.
If we were to be elected, we would definitely make sure that representation is present in our campaign and our presidency. Cinque definitely has very strong relationships with a lot of diverse and underrepresented groups here on campus. We've already met with some of them to get some of their input, and we will definitely continue to do so. I think that it is a necessary piece of wanting to represent the student body at large, to be a good representation and reflection of that, and I think Cinque and I are. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will allow rebuttal after Mr. Pringle has answered the question. Thank you.
I feel like this question goes directly into transparency and just telling everybody what they are doing and just being honest with and open for everybody. We plan, if we get elected, to stretch our arms out to communities, organizations, whatever it may be, to include as many people as possible, because we know many people are marginalized on the CSU campus just because ASCSU doesn't feel like a welcoming place right now. We feel like it is kind of scary, and from personal experience, it is intimidating to be a part of this. We want to just reach out and get these communities, organizations, and even students. We want their input on our campaign.
Thank you very much. Rebuttal from Ms. Gebretsadik.
Yeah, I just think that going off of what everyone's saying, I agree, and I think one of the core values that Christian and I are running on is radical inclusion, and what that means is ensuring that all underrepresented voices are heard and involved in the decision making, and so I think that includes listening to the voices of all students, and that's what we've done throughout our campaign, is making sure that we listen to these students' stories, because oftentimes they're reflecting other students on our campus as well.
Thank you very much. Mr. Schroeder.
To clarify with your idea, you and Christian's idea of radical inclusion, in your eyes, could white supremacy and some similar ideologies be included in your radical inclusion initiative?
Am I good to answer? Thank you for that question,
yes.
Weston. By radical inclusion, what we mean is empowering students that are often left out of the conversation, and not only having the representation of different students on our campus, because we are representing all students, but also having their voices validated.
Thank you very much. This question is for Ms. Zuklic. What specific areas of campus are you targeting for your promise to get rid of single-use plastics, and more specifically, how will you accomplish that?
I think one avenue that we would like to experience in order to get this accomplished would be maybe having less vending machines in some of the main campus buildings. Another one would, again, just be making sure that recycling bins are available, and also having more water bottle filling stations in the buildings on campus. I know that there are some that don't have it, and that can be worrisome sometimes. So, yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. Another general question. What does transparency look like to your campaign, and what will you do to be transparent if you take office? Starting with Mr. Pringle.
This goes again, you're going to keep hearing me repeat this. It goes to a big on-campus presence. We want to let you guys know what we're up to. We want to know what you feel like needs to be changed at CSU. We feel like if you know everything that's happening within ASCSU, you can make it better from the outside in a sense, just based off the fact that we don't see everything that's happening at CSU. So your opinion and insight is very, very helpful, and we really plan to try to be as transparent as possible and really welcome ideas and own up to our mistakes if we make any.
Thank you. Ms. Zuklic?
We have not had transparency at the forefront of our campaign because we do not feel that we need to defend ourselves. With this being said, we think that it should be inherent within one's taking initiative to think that they're qualified enough to be in the executive office, that it should be a given that you're going to be transparent. And it not always is, but we would definitely make sure that students know that we want to hear from them, and we will acknowledge mistakes that we make and be very transparent with the students. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Schroeder?
Transparency translates. Something that I've worked with student organizations and through our campaign process is really working with how the judiciary of CSU goes about sanctioning and imposing consequences, positive or negative, onto student organizations. And in my experience, especially Greek life. The judiciary, especially Joint Judicial Board, All University Hearing Board, etc., goes on a basis of 51% something most likely happened. That's not transparent. That's not telling the student organizations exactly how they ruled. It's not telling them exactly what they went about wrong. However, we can't control that, how they go about sanctioning, but what we can control is promoting student organizations. This is how you get sanctioned. Student organizations, this is what, judiciary, this is what student organizations say they will and won't do to keep each other accountable. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Gebretsadik?
I believe that transparency is honesty, effective communication, and letting everybody on our campus and our community know what we're working on. And I feel like transparency is needed because how else are you going to have accountability? How are students going to hold us accountable on the things that we're working on if they don't even know what we're working on? And so transparency needs to be at the forefront because it is essential in keeping us accountable.
Thank you very much. And we will now be coming to the segment for closing arguments. We will start with Mr. Schroeder and end with Ms. Zuklic. You will have 1 minute to give your closing statement.
CSU community, my name is Weston Schroeder. You've heard that before. You know me, or I want you to know me. I think things very fast, and sometimes I go too fast and I don't take some time to settle, which is kind of what I'm doing right now. But I want you to know me for who I really am, and I want to learn who you are for who you really are. And I know that Liz, tomorrow when she does her debate, she'll say something very similar. We want you guys to know who we are, not just what our positions are and what we stand for. Through your voting and through your support, you'll understand that we're creative, and through that creativity, you're going to learn and you're going to be a part of our creative solutions. You're going to learn how I've said it before is people and their choices have impacts. Positive, negative, it has impact on other people throughout the entire community and throughout a small community. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your possible vote. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you very much. Mr. Pringle?
As I stated before, a huge part of our campaign is having a heavy on-campus presence. And we feel like we don't know everything. We want to know what students at CSU want and need in their daily lives. Also, another key idea that I was not able to touch on is having fundraisers for organizations and clubs and all these different types of communities, because it is hard, it is difficult to raise those funds, and it is difficult to pay those funds to be in a club. And many students like myself were not able to be a part of these because of the huge price that you had to pay up front. So we do plan to have fundraisers for these we plan to organize some fundraisers for these organizations and maybe have surrounding businesses be included in this so that, number one, the students at CSU get a different selection of what they see on campus, and number two, help these clubs and organizations lower their prices so that people like myself are able to be in these.
Thank you very much. Ms. Gebretsadik.
Yeah, Christian and I are truly dedicated. We are truly dedicated to listening with heart and making. We don't want to make promises. We don't want to make empty promises, and that is why we were running on our values, because values are something that we can stay true to, and we understand that we don't have all the solutions, and we understand we don't know all the problems, and that is why we need your voices and we need your story. And if you vote for Christian and I, you will have your voices heard, and you will be represented.
Thank you very much. And ending with Ms. Zuklic.
So I've been talking a lot about effects of the pandemic on college life and whatnot. I think that one thing that I did learn from being in the pandemic is that you cannot take anything in life for granted. And living in isolation for so long, I think this showed everyone that, and we've all realized what a true luxury normal life was. There cannot be any more wasted time. And of course, college does not last forever. So we think that is a paramount thing to do right now is to bring back the campus community. Both Cinque and I are very passionate about fostering human connections and meeting new people, and I think that this would be very fulfilling for us to be able to foster a greater sense of community for CSU students.
Thank you very much. And to all of the people at home, thank you so much for watching tonight's vice presidential debate for the ASCSU. I would like to encourage you all to tune in to tomorrow night's presidential debate as well. Thank you all very much for watching, and